Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Rent Prep for Landlords. I'm Andrew Schultz, Community Manager here at Rent Prep. I'm also a licensed real estate broker in the state of New York with over 14 years of experience in the property management and rental property industries. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a rental property and doing an analysis of that property to determine whether or not it meets the criteria that would make it a good investment. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So starting things off here, we have a printout of an MLS property. This is actually an active listing here in the Buffalo market right now, but I've gone ahead and edited out anything that would identify the property location, just so that we can go ahead and take a look at the property a little bit more anonymously, if you will. Before we jump into that, though, I do want to make a quick mention about the spreadsheet that we're going to be using today. This spreadsheet is available for you to download for free over at what'sdrewupto.com. From there, you'll be able to download a copy of this spreadsheet, and you'll also be able to look at the video that we created on how to use it. You can also refer back to this video. They're going to be pretty similar, but it'll give you a good idea as to how to go about using the spreadsheet if there's something that I don't cover here in today's video. But we're going to go ahead and jump back to that MLS listing and just take a look at the property here. We are looking at a duplex property, 4 beds in the lower unit, 3 beds in the upper unit. It's currently listed at $189,900, and this property is currently rented out for a total of $1,800 a month. You have $1,100 in the one unit and $700 in the other unit. A couple of things that I like to look at in the MLS before I even take a walk or a drive out to a property to take a look at it. I like to go through and look at the photo set, which we're going to do here in just a minute. But the other thing that I like to take a look at is some of the particulars about the property. For instance, I like properties that have a full basement. In the Buffalo market, it's very, very common for properties to have a full basement. I know in other markets, basements are very uncommon, but here in Buffalo, a basement is a very, very common thing. And I like to see a full basement in Buffalo. I think I've mentioned in the past that I hate seeing crawl spaces because it's just inviting for frozen pipes and things of that nature. I don't like crawl spaces. I prefer a full basement. And that's something that I look at when I go to look at a property in the MLS. Foundation information is always nice to have. The attic information is always nice. But really the basement is the biggest thing that I'm looking for in that little section. And then underneath of that, this is a duplex. So I like to see that there are 2 gas and 2 electric meters. And what that means is that the tenants are going to be paying for their own gas and their own electric. You could also see that they have their own heat unit here. Typically in the Buffalo market, most furnaces are going to be run off of natural gas, which goes back to the gas metering here. So you can pretty much see 2 electric meters, 2 gas meters, 2 heat units. These tenants are going to be paying for their gas, their own electric, and their own heat. The other thing that's worth mentioning is in the Buffalo market, typically you only have 1 water meter for the entire property. So because of that, we wind up including the water in our base rent. So this base rent of $1,100 or this base rent of $700, either one, those would include the water bill when we go ahead and do our rentals. And we account for that in our analysis as well. So scrolling down here a little bit, you can see the public remarks about the property. Gives you a little bit of information about the location of the property, some of the updates that have been done, some newer windows, updated electrical and furnaces. And it goes on and talks about the showing times and things of that nature. There's also some more information about what the property has here in the interior and exterior features. This information is only as good as the agent that's putting the listing in. I'm not sure who the listing agent was on this one, so I'm not exactly sure how trustworthy the information is, if you will. But down here, you can see HVAC type is forced air. That's pretty common. You're going to see mostly either boilers or forced air units here in the Buffalo market. Heating fuel is gas. Water heater is also gas. Pretty typical to see gas or electric on that. And then obviously we do have both public sewer and public water here. If you're out in a little bit more rural situation, you may actually find that you have well water or an individual septic system or something of that nature. And also, once you start to get out more into the rural areas, at least in our market, you start seeing gas swapped out for propane or fuel oil. So that's worth knowing. It also mentions down here what types of financing are available. In this instance, cash, conventional, or FHA. It tells us what the operating expenses are that they factored in down here. And actually it doesn't look like this part was filled in correctly. But the most important thing here is the tax breakdown. You can see the town and county tax, the city village tax, the school tax, and the total tax. We'll be coming back for that in just a minute. So that's kind of a quick overview about our property. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the pictures here. And as we go through and do the analysis of the actual rental property, we're going to assume that you've been out at the property, that you already have looked at the property value. You have a pretty good feel for what this property is worth in relation to other properties in the neighborhood, and we can build our analysis based on that. So you've got the front exterior of the house. This property looks to be clad with some flavor of an asbestos-like material siding. I'm not going to sit here and call it asbestos. I'm not qualified to make that distinction, but it does look to me like that could be that style of siding. And again, as long as it's intact, that's not generally considered to be a major concern. Something I am noticing here, you can see there's quite a slant on this front balcony here. If you look at the railing, which I would assume is going to be at a 90-degree angle to the house, you can see that the actual roof has a pretty substantial slant on it. It's fine for water drainage, but probably not so much fine for being able to sit out there and use it. Scrolling down now, we're starting to get into the apartment photos. The one apartment is not in terribly bad shape. You can see that there's been some updates to the kitchen. These lower cabinets look like they've been updated. These uppers look like they're originals that have been painted. There has been some flooring that was installed. It looks like the flooring may not have been installed super professionally, judging by the seams here. Another shot of the kitchen so you can kind of see what we're looking at. Another bedroom and a bathroom on the first floor. Looks like the bathroom on the first floor has had some work put into it. Updated vanity, updated toilet, updated flooring. I don't believe we have a shot of inside the shower, unfortunately, so not much that we can work with there. Picture of a couple more bedrooms. And now we are into the other apartment. This is going to be the upstairs apartment living room and the upstairs apartment kitchen. You can see that the upstairs apartment definitely has not had as much work put into it as the downstairs has over the course of time. I would say that this kitchen is certainly in need of some updates, as well as this bathroom is certainly in need of some updates. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what the property itself looks like. And actually, it also gives us an indicator. We'll go ahead and pull the MLS sheet back up. There's definitely a reason that this 3-bedroom upstairs apartment is only renting for $700, and it is 100% the condition of the apartment. If this apartment was updated, we'd be able to get substantially higher rents for that. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. I think that the $1,100 for the 4-bedroom on the first floor is also low. It might be a situation where you need to put a little bit of cash into that one to bump the rents up some, but I think that the rents are a little bit low on that 4-bedroom unit as well. We'll talk about more on the rentals, the rent values here in just a minute as we start to get into our spreadsheet. So we've gone ahead, we've taken a look at the property, we've looked over the MLS sheet. We're going to assume that we've been out and looked at this property, and we're at the point where we're interested in actually putting an offer in on the home. So we're going to go ahead and pull up our spreadsheet so we can start doing our analysis. I'm going to take this MLS sheet and move it over to my other screen so that I can copy things over. We're going to go ahead and fill things out here. If you're not familiar with the spreadsheet, I set this thing up a couple of years ago and I use it all the time. It's great for doing a quick analysis on a rental property. It gives you a lot of different formulas, a lot of the most popular formulas that real estate investors are using, so that you can kind of take a look and see how does this property compare to others in your portfolio or others in your market. There are fields that can be edited. There are fields that can be edited, but you don't have to. And there are fields that you should not edit, because if you edit them, it's going to change your formulas and it's going to make the spreadsheet not work correctly. So let's go ahead here and we're going to say that we're doing an analysis on 123 Rent Prep Place, Buffalo, New York, 14210. So we are looking at a property in the South Buffalo neighborhood. That property is listed at $189,900 actually. We're going to assume we're not going to put anything into this property. We're going to buy this property and operate it as turnkey. In theory, you could do that. The property is currently occupied, both units. And we're going to say the actual cash invested for down payment and repairs is going to be 20% of that purchase price. So we're going to say we are putting down almost $38,000. Go ahead and drop that number in here. And as we move down, obviously you can see there's nothing factoring in here for the formulas yet because we still need to dump more information in. We're going to go ahead and put in 1 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and 1 4-bedroom, 1 bath, which gives us our total unit count of 2 and our occupied units of 2, showing a 100% vacancy rate. Backing up a little bit, we have our $1,100 rent. We also have our $700 rent. And as we add those in, you can see that it automatically goes ahead and adds all of these values up into our per month rent, and then again, our per year rent. You can also add values in here for laundry or garages or storage or whatever else it is that you have available that you can rent out on the property. And down here on the expense side, we have, actually, let me back up. I want to mention that all of the numbers that we're dealing with on this spreadsheet are yearly numbers. So if you are putting in property taxes or utility numbers, whatever the case may be, those need to be expressed as yearly values because that's what we're doing when it comes to analyzing this property. We're looking at it from a year-over-year basis. So starting off with property taxes, we will drag our MLS listing back over here. You can see we have total taxes combined between the town, county, the city, village, and the school of $13.88 a year. We'll drop that in there. Electric and gas, I'm going to go ahead and put 0 in there for placeholder. We could account for a little bit of gas and electric usage for when the apartments are vacant during a turnover or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, the gas and electric service are going to be covered by the tenants, so we're not going to worry too deeply about that. Water and sewer in the city of Buffalo region usually runs about $800 a year. We'll go ahead and factor that in. And user fee, which is garbage in our area, runs about $200 a year. So it's worth putting both of those in so that we have them. I'm not going to factor for cable or internet. Some of us do offer cable or internet as kind of an amenity in buildings, usually on larger buildings and things of that nature. But for the most part, we don't include that. So I'm going to throw a 0 in there. Now we're talking about vacancy, insurance, management, CapEx, and maintenance and things of that nature. Vacancy, I always recommend on a smaller building like a duplex, a single family, a duplex, your vacancy should be factored in as 10% of your gross annual rents. That could go down over the number of units. So if you have a larger property, you might be able to go as low as 5% on your vacancy. But the fewer number of units, the higher you should be factoring for vacancy because every one of those vacancies has a much larger impact on your bottom line. So in this instance, we're going to go 2160. We're going to say insurance is going to run about $1,200 on a duplex. That's pretty standard here in Buffalo. Maintenance and CapEx. And again, this is one of those situations. Maintenance should be considered at least 10 to 15% of your gross rents on a duplex, down to 5 to 10% on larger buildings. In this instance, we're going to factor in at 10%, 2160, and again, 2160 on management, which is 10% of the gross rents collected. For landscaping and snow removal, here in the Buffalo market, we end up cutting lawns for probably 5 to 6 months of the year, and we end up shoveling or plowing the other 6 or 7 months a year. So we're going to go ahead and factor in for landscaping on this property at, we're going to say it's going to be $50 a month, $100 a month for 6 months. And we're going to have the tenants taking care of the snow because it's a duplex. So we'll go ahead and put $600 in for landscaping and snow removal. I'm going to leave these other 2 fields vacant, but if you had other expenses that you needed to factor in, that would be the place to do it. And mortgage payment, which we're looking for principal and interest specifically here. We did add a mortgage calculator into this spreadsheet so that you have all of this right available at your fingertips. Purchase price on this property was $189,900. We're going to see the interest rate is 7.5%. Sounds good. It doesn't sound good. It sounds accurate for our current situation because we are starting this loan on, we'll say 8/1/2023. So the mortgage interest rates in our area, or really in the country, are sitting right in that 7.5% range. 20% down is going to be $37,980, but really what I want to know is what are we financing, which is $151,920. That's going to be the amount we drop in here. And once we factored that in, it gives us our monthly payment, our total monthly payment, our total loan payment over the entire course of the loan. You can see that those definitely add up, and our total interest paid over the course of the loan. If you want, you can factor in your monthly property tax amount in here as well, and that will factor in on your amortization table. But we're going to leave that blank because what we're looking for is this yearly loan payment for principal and interest, which is $12,747. And I will jump over to the AM table real quick just so you can take a look. You can see that this AM table starts with the date that we put in on the earlier tab and basically works all the way down until the property is paid off. You can see the full schedule all the way until D-Day, which is kind of nice. Going back up here, we're going to jump back to our mortgage calculator, because that number we were looking for, that 12,747, is what we're going to dump into our mortgage payment. And that's our annual mortgage payment, principal and interest only. So now we've got all our numbers in here. We can start looking at the actual numbers up at the top here, our equations to see where we factor in on this property. Well, frankly, this property is kind of a dud as it sits right now. Our debt service coverage ratio is 0.86. If you scroll down here, we do have some information about what each one of these what each one of these formulas is calculating and what the value of that calculation is. For DSCR, you can see that banks like to see at least a 1.2 DSCR. So if you're operating at a 0.86, that means that the property is literally not supporting itself. A 1.0 means that the property is supporting itself and all of its expenses. Anything above and beyond a 1.0 is where the property would be deemed profitable, where you're actually generating more than what the property is costing you to service the debt load and other associated costs. So at this point, this property is not looking real great. That cap rate is not real wonderful for the Buffalo market. I would like to see a cap rate on a duplex of at least 10%. And then the cash on cash return is negative. You're literally losing money on this property. So what can we do with this property to make it worthwhile? And this is where your local market knowledge is going to come into play. You're going to want to understand what the market is in your neighborhood. When you're talking about what's a good cash on cash return, what's a good cap rate, that's very market dependent. You're going to need to look at the properties that you already have in your portfolio, or maybe look at other properties that are similar to your property that you're looking to buy to see what kind of a return those investors are seeing based on the information that you're able to pull down. Obviously, you're not necessarily going to know the total cost of the repairs, but you could probably put a pretty good guess in just based off of the information that you get from photos and things of that nature. So going back to what can we do to make this property look a little bit more profitable, I think one of the things that we should look at is the fact that these rents are way too low, even for that property being in the condition that it's in. On that 4-bedroom, I think that we can get at least $1,250 for that unit in its current condition. And that's based on just knowing the market. We manage property in the South Buffalo area. And based on what I know a 4-bedroom rental property will go for in that sort of a condition, I think they can get $1,250 for that apartment all day, every day. That 3-bedroom is rougher than the 4-bedroom, obviously, but I still think that $700 is way too low on that. In its current condition, I think that you could safely bump that $700 up to $900. And in a minute, we're going to actually look at putting some work into the property and what the real market values would look like, but we aren't quite there yet. So we've adjusted our rents, which means that we need to go down here and adjust our vacancies, anything that we use for percentages, our vacancies, management, and maintenance. We're going to bump that up back to the 10% across the board. Our mortgage payment hasn't changed because all we've done is bump the rents up. And when you come up here, you can see, hey, at least we're not negative on our cash on cash return anymore. You can see that the debt service coverage ratio, hey, at least we're over a 1.0 at this point. That's good news. Our cap rate, still a little low, still lower than I would like it to be. But that's where we're at as the property sits currently. So let's say that you get this property and you decide that you want to come through and do some work on these units. For instance, let's say that you're going to come in and the downstairs kitchen's not too bad. The downstairs kitchen floor probably is going to need to be replaced at some point. I can't really tell if there's a ridge in this floor, if it's just the way that all of the seams came together. But otherwise, the first floor doesn't look too bad. I think where you're going to spend money is going to be on the second floor, specifically in this kitchen. And I think you're going to spend money in the bathroom as well. Off the top of my head, I think that you're probably going to spend for new flooring, repainting the cabinets, updating the appliances, and painting the walls, getting this wallpaper torn down, swapping out the ceiling fan. You're probably going to spend somewhere in the area of $15,000 to $20,000 on that kitchen if you're not swinging the hammers yourself. And on that bathroom, you're probably going to spend somewhere in the area of, depending on how far you go, it looks like we've got some mold up here. So we don't have a vet fan more than likely. I would say that you're probably going to spend somewhere in the area of, I'm going to say $7,500 to $10,000 on that bathroom. And that's assuming you're going to do things like update the plumbing and swap out the tub and things like that. Swap out the vanity, swap out the toilet, the things that you would expect to do if you're going to go in and update an apartment. And obviously, these are numbers that are going to be market specific and also property specific, which is why I said that we're looking at this property as though we've already been through it and we've decided that we want to go ahead and make an offer. The one thing I do want to mention is, as we're talking about doing upgrades into a property, please don't just do the lipstick on a pig version of a flip. If there's underlying issues with electrical or plumbing or something of that nature, if you're already opening walls up or you're already going through and doing a bunch of work on the property, spend the money to fix the mechanicals at the same time. At the end of the day, you're going to wind up with a property that has a higher resale value, and you're going to wind up with a property that performs better with less maintenance once that tenant moves in. One of the chief complaints that tenants have after they move into an apartment is the fact that it's constantly being worked on, or something is always broken, or the landlord is not responsive. And you can cut a lot of that out just by taking care of things on the front end, so a tenant is moving into as close to a perfect unit as possible. So what can we do to actually make this property worthwhile? Well, let's say that we're going to go ahead and spend the $15,000 in the kitchen in the one unit, as well as $10,000 in that bathroom. So we're going to say we're going to spend $25,000 in total repairs. This obviously increases our cash invested. We are at $37,900 right now. We're going to add $25,000 onto that, which gives us our new cash invested of $62,900. Now, if we're going to go ahead and spend the money that we're going to spend to upgrade that unit, that's obviously going to bump our rents up as well. On that 4-unit, that 4-bedroom, I think we can get $1,500 without breaking a sweat. And on that 3-bedroom, I think if we go the length that we need to make those apartments nice, I think that we're going to get $1,200 on that apartment. Based on that, we've updated, we have increased our rents up to $32,400. We'll come back down here, update our spreadsheet for vacancy, maintenance, and management. I don't think we're going to have much in the way of change in our insurance or in our landscaping, so we'll leave those alone. And as it sits right now, let's assume that you're taking that cash out of pocket to make those rehab repairs. We're going to leave the mortgage payment alone. Coming back up here to the top and looking at our formulas again, you can see that we're now at a cash-on-cash return of over 9%. Our cap rate is inching ever closer to that 10%, which is what I personally like to see. And our debt service coverage ratio is a 1.45, which means that most banks are going to be willing to service this property. They're going to be willing to offer you debt on the property because they know that you're going to be able to cover that debt. And not only cover the debt, you're going to be able to cover the debt, pay for all the expenses of the property, and still have something left over at the end of the day, because the bank doesn't want you to be at a point where you're barely making money or not making money, because they consider that to be a bad investment. So there you have it. Analyzing a rental property doesn't need to be complicated, but it is a step that you need to take each and every time that you're thinking about buying a rental property, just so you don't wind up buying something that's either going to underperform or not perform at all and leave you in a situation where you have to sell a bad asset. Spend the 10 or 15 minutes that it takes to really analyze a rental property and make sure that you're buying something that you're actually going to want once you walk away from the closing table. Thank you so much for tuning in for this video. I'm Andrew Schultz with RentPrep.com. We'll be back in a couple weeks with an all-new video you won't want to miss. Until then, we'll see you soon.